So I'd like to share two quick tidbits here. The first one is how to squash Git commits. And the second is how to set up Sublime Text to be your editor. So squashing, let's start. Squashing commits is important for getting your Git history to be clean before you commit it. Typically, there's various stuff that you put into commits that, where there are many commits that kind of really only should be one commit. And for example, right, you can do something like, let's take a look at what we've got here, right? So we did something, we have a commit, and then we had some errors where the Quill build breaks because it formats it, and if the code is not in the right formatting style, it breaks. So we added this commit called format. Now, these two commits should really be the same thing, so how do we squash them? Well, let's give it a shot. So, a second. It's interesting, actually, that this is Linux inside of Windows. So this is the Windows Linux subsystem, and it actually comes up in the Windows home directory in the mount, which is interesting. But anyhow, so let's go to and again get log. Wait, oops, Quill. So here we go. So these are the two commits that we want to squash. And what you do is this: git rebase I head, and now the -I means interactive. The head squiggly means how many commits do you want to go back. So if you go 2 commits, this is going to be 2 commits back. So we're looking 2 commits back, or we can actually look 3 commits back. You have to find, if you have a series of commits, like let's say I had this and I had format and something else and something else and something else, you have to go as far back as the first commit that you don't want to squash. So let me show you. Let's just randomly choose 4. Really, we only need 2, but I'll show you why. Right, so now we are 5 commits back. Actually, what did we do? Yeah. So we are 5 commits back. So this is our last commit. This is the second to last, right? This is the one before that and before that and before that. So it goes backwards. So let's actually quit out of this for 1 second. So it typically will show us one more than we've asked. I think that certain versions of Git don't go one more, but that's may or may not be true. So if you go, if you go 1 actually, then it just shows you the last one. Let's do 2. Oh, so that's 2 back. Interesting. So I'm not sure what their logic is behind viewing that. But anyhow, so the point is that this thing here is where we're working with. So let's go back to let's see, 4, right? Oh no, I'm wrong actually. It shows you only 4 commits back. Why did it show me 5 before? I don't remember. Anyway, so what we need to do is we need to squash the commits, and what you do is you squash all the ones that you want to roll up into the previous one. Here's what I mean. Right? Say that I do squash for this, right? That means that this commit, oh, whoops, okay, undo, no, not what you're supposed to do, excuse me, squash, right? That means that this commit will be rolled up into here. What's interesting is that, let's say that we squash this, right? That means that this commit and this commit will be rolled up into here. Right? Let's change this to pick, and let's change this to squash. that means that this commit will be rolled up into here. This commit will be rolled up into here. You can also do certain interesting things like, let's say, drop, which means that this commit just will be removed altogether. So what we want here is just squash the last commit. Let's save. And then it brings us to a screen saying, okay, right, you have this thing where you want to squash multiple commits. Here's the commit message for each of the commits that you want to squash. Choose what you want the actual commit message of your fully squashed commit going to be once it's done. So in this case, I just want this comment, the first one that I made. And let's put that. And now what we have is one commit where before we had two. Now, here's something interesting. Say that I now want to push this thing. All right, I want to push it to, in this case, to my upstream, or you'll want to push it to origin. Actually, let's try pushing to the origin. Okay, so, oh, look at that. You can no longer push it. Why can you no longer push it to the origin? Well, you can no longer push it to the origin because the origin has a different commit history. All right? So let's take a look at our origin. In this case, let's see what origin, get remote get origin, very convenient command. Use Quill. And okay, so it is our branch. Here's our branch. Now, if you look at this thing, let's look at the history. The format commit still is here, right? Just because we squashed it on our local doesn't mean it's on remote. So in this case, if we want our master to reflect what we've done locally, we have to force push, which is a dangerous operation, so you have to be very careful. Basically, you don't ever want to do this to master, otherwise terrible things can happen. But in this case, we're doing a branch, so we're going to force push to our branch. And so now, when you reload this thing, you'll see, voila, we no longer have that commit. Now, here's another interesting thing. I want to transition to something else. Let's say, for example, that we're in a situation where, and this happens quite often, where let's say that we have a whole bunch of commits. So let's do Sublime in this directory. Let's open up Sublime Text. Here we have Sublime Text. We will close this. You know what? Actually, let's leave this open. Let's leave this open for a minute. That's fine. What did we have up here? All right, that's all right. Okay. So, let's say that let's actually, let's look into this directory. There we go. That's what I wanted. So let's say that we made a bunch of changes. So let's make a bunch of changes. Let's open up something random. Let's open up the build file, right? Let's say we made a change. One. All right, and then let's say 2. Oops, we didn't even save this thing. right, and then 3. Right, and then 4. Oops. What happened here? Oops. Now we've got 4 commits here. And when we do something like, let's say, trying to rebase, that will be head -5, I believe. So you'll want to squash all 4 of these commits if you want to have one big squash. Commits will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So, squash, right? It could get a little tedious. I mean, again, if you're a VI fan here, you could probably do this in a second because you know all the commands and you're super awesome at it. I'm not. So I don't know how to do multiple cursor editing in VI or something like that. I'd like something a little user-friendlier, maybe Sublime. So you can actually, let's undo that, you can make Sublime Text your default editor for Git and for those Git commits. And if you've installed Sublime into the Windows Linux subsystem, this should be doable. So let's give this a shot. There's this command. Let's see. There's this command that you can use called git config global core.editor. And let's do that, actually. So let's see, what are these arguments here? So this is OS X, by the way. If you're in OS X, you need to make a link to the actual Sublime. Oops. We are not in OS X now. We are in WSL, so I don't think we need to do that. And we already have Sublime working. But it's Subl, S-U-B-L, right? That's what we use to launch Sublime, as you've seen before. And the N means new window, and W means wait for closing before returning. That makes sense, right? Because we need the Git shell to wait until the file is saved and closed. So let's give this a shot. It's going to be, in our case, it's not going to be Sublime. It's going to be Subl. So let's try it. Git rebase. Head 5. So let's see what's happened. So sometimes it actually launches and you actually have to find it. So in this case, it's down here. If you don't really have any Sublime Text windows, it should pop right up. But if you've got many, then it might be a hassle. So look at that. We have multiple cursor support. And squash, right? That's wonderful. Let's save. W for close. And look at that. It immediately pops up directly in Sublime, the next window, which tells us what do we actually want our commit message to be. In this case, let's select everything to the bottom, save, and there we go, git log, we're good. So anyhow, those are the 2 things that I want to share with you guys, and until later.